Hello? Meghan Markle finds herself once again caught in the glare of controversy, this time thanks to an unlikely source comedian Howie Mandel. Known for his sharp wit and no-nonsense demeanor, Mandel dared to pull back the curtain on Meghan's latest round of lofty ambitions during a recent TV interview. His blunt assessment left Meghan reportedly shocked and dismayed, exposing her newest plans as nothing more than another set of impractical, overly aspirational ideas. It appears that Meghan's penchant for grandiosity without substance has once again landed her in hot water. Howie Mandel, who is typically known for his humor and light-hearted approach, took a surprising turn when he chose to speak frankly about Meghan's latest endeavors. He didn't mince words, referring to her initiatives as foolish and highlighting their lack of grounding in reality. According to Mandel, Meghan's plans seem more like the product of a fantasy world than a practical, actionable strategy. Mandel's comments have struck a chord, resonating with many who have long grown weary of Meghan's endless announcements of new ventures that promise much but deliver little. From woke podcasts to ambitious media projects, Meghan has attempted to build a reputation as a thought leader and philanthropist. Yet, as Mandel points out, these efforts often feel disconnected from the real world, filled with empty slogans rather than tangible results. Predictably, Meghan did not take Mandel's comments lightly. Sources close to the Duchess reveal that she was utterly taken aback by the public criticism. It's almost as if Meghan was genuinely surprised that someone would dare to call her out on her questionable plans. Her reaction has been described as one of shock and dismay, a curious response from someone who has made a career out of courting the media's attention. Now, in full damage control mode, Meghan's team is working overtime to spin the story in her favor. They're scrambling to portray her thoughtfully considered initiatives as being misunderstood and unfairly maligned. In typical fashion, Meghan is positioning herself as the victim, claiming that she has been subjected to yet another unfair portrayal by the media. Her narrative is clear. Howie Mandel's comments are not a legitimate critique but an unwarranted attack on her character. One more time, the public's reaction has been divided, but in ways that are becoming all too predictable. On one side, there are those who applaud Mandel's honesty and see his comments as a refreshing dose of reality. They see through Meghan's glossy facade and are tired of her endless self-promotion and vacuous projects. They argue that Meghan needs to hear the truth, that her ideas are often out of touch with reality, more about grabbing headlines than affecting real change. On the other side, Meghan's defenders are quick to rush to her aid, claiming that Mandel's critique is simply another example of the unjust scrutiny she faces. To them, Meghan is an innovator and a trailblazer, unfairly targeted by a media machine that refuses to let her succeed. But let's be honest, these defenses are wearing thin. It's getting harder and harder for even her most ardent supporters to ignore the pattern. Big promises, big plans, and very little to show for it. Looking at Meghan's latest projects, we can see that there is more talk than substance. This latest controversy comes amid Meghan's newest ventures, a series of inspirational, charitable projects and public initiatives that critics have already deemed impractical and ineffective. Whether it's a new foundation, a documentary series, or a motivational podcast, Meghan's projects seem to follow a familiar formula: big on vision, light on detail, and often lacking in tangible outcomes. These ventures are always announced with great fanfare, accompanied by glowing press releases and carefully curated social media posts. Yet, when the dust settles, what remains? Very little. Meghan's initiatives are often criticized for being more about optics than outcomes, more about boosting her personal brand than making a real difference. It's a trend that has not gone unnoticed by the public or the media. It's hard to escape the impression that Meghan's latest ventures are part of a broader strategy to stay relevant in a world that is quickly moving on. Since stepping back from royal duty, Meghan has struggled to find her place, bouncing from one project to another in a desperate attempt to maintain her status as a public figure. Yet, each new venture seems to highlight her disconnect from reality and her inability to find a niche that resonates with the public. Her critics argue that Meghan's projects are more about her own desire for validation and attention than about any genuine desire to help others. She seems more interested in playing the role of the inspirational leader than actually doing the hard work required to effect change. It's a strategy that might have worked in Hollywood, but it's falling flat in the real world. where actions speak louder than words. And then we continue to witness Meghan's usual moves. Meghan's response to Mandel's critique is also nothing new. Time and time again, when faced with criticism, Meghan plays the victim card. She positions herself as the target of a vicious media, unfairly maligned and misunderstood. It's a narrative that she has relied on throughout her public life, from her time in the royal family to her Hollywood escapades. But there's only so many times you can play the victim before people start to see through it. Meghan's perpetual claims of unfair treatment are beginning to sound hollow. They come across not as a legitimate grievance, but as a calculated move to deflect criticism and shift the narrative in her favor. At some point, Meghan needs to realize that not all criticism is unwarranted. Some of it is deserved and necessary. It's also worth noting how Meghan seems to thrive in these moments of controversy. Each time she finds herself at the center of a media storm, she manages to turn it into a spectacle, ensuring that all eyes remain firmly fixed on her. Whether it's a TV interview, a podcast, or a social media post, Meghan knows how to keep herself in the headlines. This latest drama with Howie Mandel is no different. It has once again positioned Meghan at the center of a debate, allowing her to play both the martyr and the misunderstood genius. And in doing so, she ensures that her name stays in the spotlight. A tactic that has served her well, but one that is beginning to wear thin. Ultimately, it's hard to feel sympathy for Meghan when these controversies arise. Many would argue that she is simply reaping what she has sown. Her relentless pursuit of fame, her constant need for validation, and her habit of playing the victim have all contributed to her current predicament. She has created a persona that is both polarizing and divisive, and now she must live with the consequences. The truth is, Meghan's approach to public life is one that is built on spectacle rather than substance. She seems more interested in creating a brand than in building a legacy, more focused on maintaining her image than in making a real impact. And as long as she continues down this path, she will remain a figure of controversy rather than a figure of inspiration. Clearly, what makes Howie Mandel's comments so significant is that they represent a rare moment of honesty in a world that often seems hesitant to call Meghan out. Mandel dared to say what many have been thinking for a long time, that Meghan's grand plans are often little more than fantasy, disconnected from the realities of the world in which she claims to want to make a difference. In doing so, Mandel has done more than just expose Meghan's latest ambitions as foolish. He has reminded the public that sometime a little honesty is necessary. For too long, Meghan has been allowed to spin her narrative unchecked, presenting herself as a visionary leader while offering little concrete results. Mandel's comments serve as a wake-up call, a reminder that not everyone is buying what Meghan is selling. If there is one thing that this latest controversy highlights, it is the growing fatigue with Meghan's endless quest for attention. The public is becoming weary of the constant drama, the perpetual victimhood, and the never-ending cycle of grand announcements that amount to little more than self-promotion. People are beginning to ask themselves, what exactly does Meghan stand for? What does she actually hope to achieve? At some point, Meghan will need to offer more than just big ideas and big plans. She will need to show that she is capable of delivering on her promises, that she is genuinely committed to making a difference, rather than just making headlines. Until then, she will remain a figure of controversy, rather than a figure of substance. But one thing I found quite interesting was that Meghan's cycle of self-sabotage was constant. Meghan Markle's latest controversy with Howie Mandel reveals a deeper pattern of behavior that could be described as self-sabotage. Time and again, Meghan seems to set herself up for failure by over-promising and under-delivering. She steps into the spotlight with grand ideas, only to find herself unable to back them up with concrete action or results. This cycle of expectation and disappointment is not new for Meghan, but it has become increasingly detrimental to her public image. Her insistence on launching projects without solid foundations are clear. Realistic goals suggest a lack of foresight and planning. She often presents her initiatives as revolutionary, but they frequently fall flat because they lack substance or practical application. This creates a feedback loop where she must constantly defend her actions, scrambling to maintain credibility in the face of mounting skepticism. The repeated failures are not just a series of isolated incidents, but rather symptoms of a larger issue. Meghan's refusal to recognize her own limitations and adapt accordingly. A closer examination of Meghan's actions reveals an insatiable need for external validation. Her relentless quest for public approval suggests a deep-seated insecurity, a desire to be seen as important, relevant, and influential. This need drives her to pursue visibility at any cost, even when it means overextending herself or venturing into areas where she lacks expertise or understanding. This dependency on external validation has led Meghan into a series of ill-advised ventures. She appears to derive self-worth from being in the limelight, surrounded by cameras and microphone, rather than from the genuine impact of her work. This is why she seems to move from project to project with such urgency. Each new endeavor is another attempt to capture the approval and admiration she craves. But this approach is inherently unsustainable. The more she chases after validation, the more elusive it becomes, leaving her stuck in a cycle of constant self-promotion that does little to build lasting respect or credibility. In short, it is time for a reality check. As Meghan Markle faces yet another round of criticism, perhaps it's time for her to take a step back and reflect. Instead of doubling down on her victim narrative, she might consider embracing a little humility, listening to her critics, and focusing on what she can actually achieve, rather than what she wants people to believe she can. Meghan's endless pursuit of attention has brought her this far, but it may not take her much further. If she wants to be seen as more than just a headline-grabbing figure, she needs to start showing that she is capable of real, meaningful action. Until then, she remains exactly where Howie Mandel left her, lost in a world of foolish plans and grand illusions, desperately seeking validation but finding none. That is all I have to say regarding today's video subject. Do you have any other thoughts? Please share more with us and others in the comment section below. Thank you so much, everyone. Please remember to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Goodbye, and I'll see you again.